Hello and welcome back to the final video in this series looking at how to set up a Japanese kanna plane. Now, I know I have waffled on about this at great length. There are quite a lot of videos out there that will show you how to do this, and they do it very well. Some of those people that have a great deal of experience, far more than I have or will ever have. Sometimes though, it can be handy to get all those little details, because even though this is a fairly simple looking tool, there are quite a lot of points in the design and the fitting of this that one needs to get a grip on to set this up nicely. So I'm at the stage where the blade and the chip breaker fit pretty well. I've just got to finish off the work on the die. So it needs some chamfers. These edges are still crisp. I did put a very small chamfer over here crudely, just so I didn't damage it while removing the blade. I will make this chamfer somewhat larger, and then all of these corners I'm just going to take them off just a little bit. The only ones I'm not going to take off are along the front and the back of the plane. Even on these sides here, they can have quite a large chamfer actually, because the blade is well in board of those, but they're normally chamfered as well. So I'm going to chamfer all of those. Then I'm going to flatten the bottom of the plane. I will come back at some point and talk about contact points, but the starting point is a flat base. Now, if I were making this die myself, this of course, the entire thing I would flatten, and then I would choose where I'm going to relieve it. Part of that choice has been taken away because the back of this plane is already relieved. As it happens, it's fine for my purposes. It's relieved rather a lot. I wouldn't have taken that much off. Obviously, when I flatten this, it's going to get a bit closer. Over time, there will come a point when I need to work on the back here at some point, but it's not going to be for a while because this is quite a bit lower than over here. But anyway, I will flatten that off, and then we will get this fitted out and hopefully working well. So I'm just going to use this little block plane here to just take the corners off. I've got this set to a very fine cut. Now this grain is very straight, it's not making any difference which way I'm going, and I'm only taking just a tiny amount of material off. I'll be a little cautious here so that I don't cause any breakout. So I've not done much there, but all those crisp edges are gone. And now across the back a little bit more. If I wanted to take anything bigger off, I would have to clamp this, but I'm taking such a fine cut, I can manage this without holding this work down. Right, and then finally, just along here, that will do for now. All those crisp edges are gone, so just these two left. Right. So I've got a granite tile here, which is pretty flat. Yeah. It's a good test really, because if there's a hump in the middle, it will catch on it, or you can see that actually it's touching all the way along, so that is good and flat. Now, this might be considered bad form, I think, but I am going to sand the bottom of the plane So I have scribbled all over the bottom of the plane here. Not here, this is relieved so much that I'm never going to get anywhere near this with the sandpaper, not for a while. What I want to do is sand away at that until at least these areas are coplanar. If it's hollow in the middle, that's fine. However, I need to get the blade in there before I do this. And that's because this blade, it exerts pressure on the body, and it may be that with the blade in there, this is slightly different around the mouth of the plane than with the blade out. Now, obviously, I'm going to make sure that the edge of the blade is well back, so I'm not going to be anywhere near it with the sandpaper. Seat the chip breaker as well. Yeah, the blade is clear, but if it's having any effect on the body here, it's much better to have that in the plane whilst flattening than out. And then I could clamp this tile down. Just going to sand. Let's have a look. So I'm taking material off a little bit here, sort of here, and then over here, a little bit here. It's a little bit hollow here, and that's fine. I can leave that. I'm not worried about that. I'm really worried about a strip here and here. And that's what I need to make sure is nice and flat. I've taken that off at the front. Most of that there. Still a little hollow here, but I'll take a little bit more off because I'm not quite sure about that little spot there. Now that's looking pretty good actually. I don't need to take that any further. That's flat, this is all flat, it's just slightly hollow here, and I need that hollow anyway. Just going to mark across here where I want my contact points to be. I think that will be nice. And up here. And then again, I'm going to just mark this with pencil. And that's because I'm going to remove some of the material here. Now, this can be done in all sorts of ways. Sandpaper, scrapers, planes, cross grain. With the grain, it doesn't really matter as far as I can see, but I am going to use this little scraper gadget. It is meant for messing around with planes, and I'm only going to take a tiny amount off. I'm just going to hold the plane in place. It's a little bit easier to work with it. And I'm just going to scrape with the grain. That leaves a nice smooth finish on here, and I'm going to scrape, certainly I'm going to scrape till all of that pencil mark is quite clearly gone. So this scraper is removing very fine, well, it's almost dust, very fine shavings. Cabinet scraper would do a nice job. This is quite a handy little tool for this. I'll just flip this around. that is probably enough there. Now, I said the back has been relieved, but only to about there. So there's a small area of land here that's in contact, and I think I'm just going to remove just a little bit just here, because that's not necessary. I can always remove more later if I need to, and if I put a rule across this now, I should see light through this. Actually, funnily enough, it's good here, but there's an area here that I think I'd want to move just a little bit more. Right, that is great now. This is nicely relieved. I don't want to take more off than that. This is still way clear. So this is good to go. Got this scrap of pine in the vise. The blade is just peeping through, so let's see how it does. Well, that's a very nice shaving. You can see that the chip breaker is doing its job there. That's why it's coming out all crinkly. It's not particularly tightly curled. So the chip breaker is definitely functioning there. I have a fancy it's a shade thinner on one side than the other. It feels a bit thicker there. So if I look down the blade, I should be able to, if I sight down the body, I should be able to see that. So I just, tiny adjustment. That should be all it needs to even that up. Now these are coming out really very thin indeed, which is what I want from this plane. The surface is really smooth. Yeah, that's pretty good. So now for something a little less pleasant. So I've got this piece of gnarly oak here, big split thanks to this horrible knot, and consequently grain that is a little bit swirly and unpleasant, so rather prone to tear out. But that's not bad. That's a pretty nice surface. That is smooth. There's a sheen to it. I can't see any tear out there. So that's pretty good. Then I've got some sapele. Let's try this flat. That's pretty nice. It's a pity, such an interesting looking wood with all the cross grain. That's planing very nicely. There's a beautifully smooth, shiny finish left on the wood there. Let's just take a look at the end grain. Now this can be a little tricky, of course. It's taking powdery thin shavings off of there. But just give that just a little tap. Now, I don't want to go too far here because I'll just break out on this end. But there we go, wafer thin shavings off of the end grain. It's not bad actually, not bad at all. Yeah, beautiful. Cutting through that like butter. Yeah, that is not bad at all. Very happy with that. And of course, if I want to, I can take a deeper cut. All right, I specifically want this plane because I think this blade is better than the blade in some of my others. Then I specifically want this for these fine cuts, but if I give it a little more depth, it will of course take a deeper cut. And there we go. That is quite a chunky shaving, especially compared with that. It takes a little tap to bring that back. Let's have a look. Doesn't take much to adjust it. Yeah, we're back to finer shavings there. Those are delightful. So I'm quite happy with the performance of the plane as it stands. Undoubtedly, I will be fiddling with this for some time until I get it working just the way I want it. I may have to open this up just a little bit here because there are some shavings getting caught. I could of course be a little bit more conscientious about clearing them as I'm planing, but this is a very small gap here, and if I just take a file and just open that just a tiny amount, that should help with that. But otherwise, I think I am done with this set of videos. Now, there are lots of people out there who know a lot more about this than I do, but I've done this a few times and I thought I'd share the little bits and bobs that I have learned along the way. Hopefully there's something interesting or useful in it for you. But that is all for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.